Hi there everyone, I'm Johnny Walker and this is our review of the year with OtherWise Education. There's a cat here. Now it is cheating slightly because I'm going to go back to September 2019. It just feels like this is a good time for us to pause and reflect on where we're at after this last year and a bit. Personally, as I'm sure many of you are, I am exhausted, but I'm also appreciative. And I'm appreciative of all the good that has happened this year alongside a lot of the challenges which have been there. Really, this video is a collection of gratitudes, and as I was writing through for this video, it's made me recognise quite how many people I've got to be grateful for and thankful for over the last 16 months. It's kind of the reason why we're still afloat. So it's a video of gratitudes. Let's start at the start. I'm going to twirl a tail. It's gone. Right at the very beginning of September 2019, just as OtherWise Education was starting and launching, my old head teacher, Natasha Tafali at Park Primary School, asked if I would support with their residential visits. The mail's arrived. Just some book posts. In October of 2019, I was really fortunate to go up and start training and running, learning sessions in different parts of the UK. So I went up to Derby, worked with Zaytuna Primary School for National Poetry Day, which was brilliant. And around that time, we also launched our Rites of Passage project, working with some schools in Newham. And we worked with these primary schools to develop a culture of writing for pleasure. We were working with the children to understand the different ways that different writers hone their craft so that the children can develop their own authentic ways of writing. November is Poetry Month. For the first time last November this is, we were able to do 2 visits. So we went once at the beginning of November and once at the end. For the first visit, we worked with children from the New Vision Trust schools in Newham, which is Elmhurst, Nelson, Vicarage and Galleons. And we went at the start of November. We had a brilliant time. It was very rainy, but they were so valiant. They just kind of tromped through the mud and the heavy rain. So many memories, and it was a really lovely project. Now the YHA were also very supportive of us with that project, and they commissioned a videographer to work with us. So his name was Russell Barnett, and he did some fantastic filming. You're going to see a little bit of it now. At the end of November, Adisa and I returned again, so we cleaned off our waterproofs and got back on the coach. So this time we worked again with a different group of pupils from Elmhurst Primary School, also with Star Primary and Keir Hardy Primary, both in Newham, as well as Holy Trinity Church of England School from Gravesend. That was a really different kind of poetry retreat, so there was a lot more of an emphasis on performance and music. We just happened to have a much more, I would say, extroverted group of kids, so we were able to modify what we did to kind of match the group that we had. We had some lovely moments there too, as you're about to see. Memories. So across those 2 retreats, there was an abundance of writing, enough in fact that we were able to produce 2 separate anthologies of their writing. So the first anthology from the first visit was called That Should Be a Poem, You Should Write It, and the other one was called Retreating. Now, around this time in November, we also applied for funding from Newham Council. So there was a cultural enrichment fund where they wanted to pilot new arts activities and culture activities which would bring together children from across the borough. Now, our project, which we pitched, was another version of the Rites of Passage network, which we'd already started running for ourselves. We managed to get that funding. So that enabled us to set up 2 more networks. There was a primary network, which worked with 6 Newham primary schools, and we also launched a secondary network working with Year 7 pupils from 4 Newham secondary schools. Now, Christmas happened. Imagine that. When it got to January, we started off 2 versions of our new project, Kudos. Now, Jo had a lot more of a steer with Kudos as well. It was inspired by her insights into coaching, and especially the work of an academic, Nancy Klein, about the power of active listening, about time to think and so on. So we developed that project in 2 areas. So one, we did it in Newham, working with the Echo Trust schools based at Casden Primary School. And I also had the chance to finally get up north as well and do a sustained project. So I was working with Ackroydon Primary Academy in Halifax.
It like makes you feel like welcome. You don't get as stressed as you do in class. Like, there's people like that understand you.
March came, full steam ahead, full calendar. It was Geography B season, so we expanded that too. So as well as the Newham one, which we've done since 2015, we also launched one in Redbridge with Glade Primary School, and we launched one up in Wakefield with Jerry Clay Academy. But then lockdown hit. Suddenly, from having had a very full calendar and with things going really well, a burgeoning new organisation, keeping Joe and I very, very busy, suddenly within the space of a few days, at no fault of the schools, they are closed, they can't really have us doing anything. Suddenly we went from having a completely full calendar to having a completely empty one, from having like the steady money that you need to feed that cat. From having the money that we need to feed that cat to having no income whatsoever. All of that happened within a few days, which was obviously not ideal. We didn't really know what to do, so I just got in the shed, as is often the case, and I started making a Geography B up as an online thing, put it online, shared it with a few schools, shared it with a few people just randomly on Twitter, and whilst not many people saw it, got to be honest, the ones who did were really appreciative, and it just showed us that there were different ways of doing things that we were already doing which could work. Now at that time, once again, just like they did at the start of September 2019, Natasha and Park Primary sort of came to my personal rescue. So Natasha thought of me before I even needed to ask, and I would have asked, but I didn't need to, and that was even nicer. They asked if I would come in and support a park to support their home learning once the lockdown had hit and schools had closed. This would mostly involve setting up a YouTube channel and then populating that with content so that we could film stuff in school with the key worker children, and it would just mean that we'd be able to keep the life of the school flowing through the YouTube channel. I really appreciated having that opportunity extended to me. Actually, it ended up changing the scope of what we do with OtherWise. Around April 2020, Joe and I began looking for opportunities to get some money, because obviously we need that for clothes and waffles and things like that we need. Because we were a new organisation, we weren't eligible or entitled to any government money, which was obviously not ideal either. But when the Arts Council began to announce their emergency funds, we looked into that, we worked quite hard on a bid, and gratefully and thankfully we were successful. We know that there were lots of brilliant arts organisations who did not receive that money, and we were just very grateful that we were one who did. Now that allowed us to stay afloat. It's as simple as that. If we didn't have that money, we were not going to be able to stay as an organisation. There was just nothing coming in and it would have folded. That money allowed us to turn my shed into a more well-equipped YouTube studio with green screen and a professional lighting set. It also allowed us to restructure the organisation. It allowed us to move our rites of passage projects that we were doing with the Newham Council online. It allowed us to move all of our workshops into YouTube and to continue sending those out to schools during lockdown. It allowed us to basically stay afloat and adapt, and we are very grateful and continue to be very grateful for it. When it got to this academic year, starting in 2020, the Rites of Passage project had just about survived. Now we understood that some schools were not able to continue. It was meant to be a one-year project. Because of COVID, we had to extend the deadlines and drag it over a longer period of time. For those schools who managed to stay involved though, we were astounded to see the quality of what work started to come in. The children had been writing a lot through lockdown. We had really fascinating escapist fiction sitting alongside thoughtful poetry about Black Lives Matter, alongside personal writing about how they had coped with lockdown. It gave us a real opportunity to see that the values that we were espousing in the sessions, for quite a few of those pupils, had really settled. The children were seeing writing as something not just to support their academics, but as something to support a good life, and it was nice to see that manifest. We had an opportunity in October to develop something new, so With Newham Learning, which is a collection of lots of the local schools, OtherWise Education was commissioned to develop a raft of 52 learning videos and to edit them, working in partnership with the local state schools. Finally, the biggest change of 2020, this academic side of the year, was that I began working 1 day a week with Glade Primary School in Ilford. So poetry residencies were an adaptation of our poetry retreats. Obviously, sadly, poetry retreats were out of the window. We couldn't do residential visits like we had been doing. So we looked at different ways of doing things, and Glade Primary School happens to have a lovely forest area within its school grounds. So I've been working with them every Monday, working initially with Year 6 for the first half term, where we got to write lots of different kinds of poetry, where we got to play with words and just enjoy exploring, going a little bit wild in the woods.
Hands on the leaves to the rhythm of the tree. Hands on the leaves to the rhythm of the tree.
And then with Year 3s, we've just finished a half term with Year 3 where we were looking at nature and nonsense poetry, focusing on the Jabberwocky and getting the children to embed drama and play within their writing. It's been a lovely project for them too. I will also mention we had an after-school club working with a group of 10 pupils. It's more of a pastoral focus rather than a writing focus, running between September and December. It just finished yesterday, and I just want it on record. That is one of the most fulfilling and I would say meaningful teaching experiences that I've had. That brings us to today, and really what I want to say is I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. Along the way we've had a lot of support. I never really thought it would be a solo endeavour, but I didn't appreciate quite how much we will mutually depend on each other, in this professional way throughout these times. So I feel like we've offered a lot of good, but I feel like we've also received a lot of good. So as we look at 2021, weirdly, I'm feeling quite optimistic about it. The work is starting to pick up a little bit. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID, but whether things get better or worse, we feel we can flex a little bit in either direction. We're going to stick with the things that we know work well, and we're going to stick with our areas of strength. We're going to develop our skills even further with video editing and build that into lots of our projects so that children can be supported to become fully digitally literate. The outdoor education element of what I've been doing at Glade Primary School is something I'm looking to expand. I would love to take on more poetry residencies in different schools so that we can do that sort of work all the time. It's been the most rewarding, challenging teaching of my career to date, and I love it. I want to end with a few specific thank yous. So I will say to Natasha Tafali, the head at Park Primary in Stratford, and to Fazana Hussain, the head at Glade in Ilford, thank you for the opportunity to work with you at a time that has been undoubtedly the worst and most stressful time to be a head teacher. I'm in awe of what you've managed to achieve, and I'm very grateful that in a small way we've been able to be a part of supporting at Park, supporting at Glade, and I hope that we can continue to do so. I want to thank Adisa, the only person I would want to be doing these poetry retreats with. I've enjoyed working with you all the way through the time that we've worked together. I've enjoyed working with teachers as well as with pupils, and I'm looking forward to bringing our lively, dynamic, weird projects to even more people in the future. Finally, my biggest thanks go to my Joe Castro friend. From the very first moment I saw her on the staircase in the school that we were both working in, I knew that I wanted to latch onto her and make her my friend. I remain in awe of her as a teacher. I remain somebody who learns from her every time I speak with her. She's got a horrible sense of humour though. Horrid sense of humour. I just enjoy working with you, Joe. If I didn't have you, I don't know if I would have got through all of these crazy times. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I look forward to 2021. More merriment, more jumping out of lifts at people, more coffees. So if you want to see what we're doing, if you want to work with us, if you want to do stuff with us, then do that. You can email me, johnny@otherwiseeducation.com. If you go to that website, otherwiseeducation.com, you can see our podcast on there, you can see what we're doing, you can see all of our different projects and things like that. You can see a list of some of our different trainings that we're offering as well, if people want to do remote training with us. And you can also subscribe. I occasionally send a whimsical mailing list thing out, so get involved. What else should you do? Get on the Twitters, So you can follow us on Twitter at OtherWiseEdu. Also, you can follow our individual Twitters. So mine is at JohnnyWalker_edu. Joe's is at JoeCastro_coach. And Adisa's is at AdisaPoet. Follow all of us. We're merry. You could also follow us on Instagram. We're doing different things there. I'm investing a lot more time in it. So on our Instagram, that's where we're sharing our most up-to-date photos and videos from our projects. It's also where I'm doing book reviews as well, picture book and poetry reviews, as well as putting up free resources, free lesson plans, all of that jazz, all over on the Insta. Get on the Insta. Is that a phrase people use? Get on the Insta. That's just our username on Insta is OtherWiseEdu. Same as on Twitter. Follow us, it's nice. And here on YouTube, I don't know what way people do it. It's either there or there or there or there. Subscribe, then you'll find out more things like this, but as well, more interesting things than this. Yeah, have a nice holiday. I hope you rest. I hope you sleep for 16 hours at least once. Stay safe. Wash those hands. I hear you can still sing Baby Shark and it's a good time limit to wash. And we will see you in the new year. Be well.